USB, we're going to right-click on it and go to Properties and make sure that the file system is exFAT, not FAT32 for copying your game dumps over. We need it to be exFAT, so you can right-click and format it and change it to exFAT file system if you're using a different format, and then click Start to reformat the drive, but obviously back up any data on the drive before reformatting it. Okay, so once we're on the USB, we need to get our YouTube jailbreak autoloader set up to load this new payload, along with ETA-hen or Kstuff, depending on which one you want to use. So we're going to open up the YouTube jailbreak update.zip file and copy out the PS5 autoloader folder to the root of the USB. Then we're going to open this up and delete the FTP payload that's in here. And we want to copy either ETA-hen or Kstuff into this folder, whichever one you want to use. So I'm using ETA-hen, but you can also use Kstuff standalone, which would just be the kstuff.l of the latest version of Kstuff. And then also we want the ShadowMount and the notify.elf. This is, again, if you want the notifications popping up to tell you when it's scanning and when it's found a game to install, then you can install that notify.elf, but it is optional. So once we have that all set up, we can open up the autoload.txt file, and then we can just delete everything that's in this text file. And now we just add the ETA-hen payload first, or Kstuff, into that text file as the first payload to load. And then the second one will be the ShadowMount.elf file, if that's all you want to load. Obviously, you can also add the notify.elf between ETA-hen and ShadowMount if you want to. Otherwise, if you just want to stick with the normal notifications and only have the two payloads loaded, then go ahead and just add ETA-hen or Kstuff and then ShadowMount.elf the second and save the file. Now, as a side note, the sample configuration for the payload does show these exclamation point 1000 millisecond delays been added between loading each payload. So you can add that if you are having issues with the payload not loading. So the 1 second delays are just designed to give each payload time to execute before loading the next one. For whatever reason though, whenever I add these 1 second delays or any second delays, it always seems to cause one of the payloads not to work. So for me, it always works better not adding the delays, but again, your mileage may vary. The next step, of course, is going to be to get our game dumps installed. So I'm going to right-click and create a new homebrew folder on here. And inside this homebrew folder, we're going to copy our game dumps inside. So we can see it's on USB F homebrew. So what I'm going to do is find my game dumps. So I have a few game dumps here. We'll take Dead Space Remake first. So I'll open this up. Here's the compressed version of the game dump that is in this RAR file. I'm going to right-click and use 7-zip to extract it. So I'll leave a link to 7-zip in the description if you don't have it. And then we're going to extract files. And I'm going to paste in the location where I want to extract it to, the homebrew folder on my USB, and click OK and let it extract that game dump into that folder. Okay, there we go. So we have got our game extracted. If I was on a 4.x firmware, I would also extract the backport patch into the same folder that has been dumped there from the game. You get it working on 4.x firmwares, but I'm on 10.1, so I don't need the backport patch here. So that is basically it. We have everything set up here. So all I need to do is eject this USB and plug it into the back USB ports, or one of the back USB ports on the PS5. Now, I'm only doing one game at the moment because I want to see what happens once the payload is actually running and we disconnect the drive and add another game on, and then plug it back in and see if it automatically adds that game, or if we have to send the payload again, which would make it not as great, but we'll kind of see if it works the way that I hope it does here. Now, if you're loading ETA-hen 2.5b for the first time and you don't have the latest version of Kstuff loaded, if it says it's loading version 1.6.6 of Kstuff instead of 1.6.7, you will need to go into your debug settings or ETA-hen toolbox, go into the settings and then the Kstuff menu, and then from there you'll be able to update the latest version of Kstuff from GitHub, which will download the latest version and install it, so that the next time you load the jailbreak, it will load the latest version of Kstuff 1.6.7, which is needed in order for this plugin to work correctly. So make sure you're using the latest version of Kstuff if you're loading it from within ETA-hen. And of course, you'll need to have a network connection to be able to use that feature on your console. Alternatively, you can upload the Kstuff file directly. I'll leave a link to it in the description. You can use FTP to transfer it over to the /data/ETA-hen folder on the hard drive on the console storage. So you can also upload it manually to that location as well if you're not able to use the auto update feature. So let's go ahead and run our YouTube jailbreak autoloader to run the jailbreak. And that should run our ETA-hen payloader Kstuff, depending on which one you're loading here. So we get Itemzflow loaded first, and then we can also see it's loading the game mounter as well. There we go, 2 new games starting. So it has successfully detected it, looks like it is running. Found a new game, installing Astrobot. That's actually one that's not on the USB drive, so it obviously picked that one up from the internal storage. So all dumped, configured, enjoy, void whisper. So this is the regular notifications. I did not add the notify payload, so this is just the normal notifications you get. We'll also try with the other notify payload to see how different the notifications are there. But as you can see, that is us up and running. We've got Astrobot. So yeah, let's go ahead and try and run them. So Dead Space Remake, installed off USB storage. So this one is on the USB drive. So it'll take a little bit longer to load initially. But as you can see, there we go. The game is now running. So that's our Dead Space Remake loaded directly off the USB drive that we copied over there. And then Astrobots is in the data folder in the Itemzflow games folder. So it was able to detect that game dump as well and install it as a usable shortcut that can be launched directly off the homepage. And yep, there it is. Astrobot is now loading as well. So yeah, pretty fantastic plugin. But what I want to see is how it works. If I unplug the USB drive now, load another game on, will the payload still be running in the background, and will it detect when I add another game to the USB? So let's go ahead and test this. So I'm going to unplug the USB. Okay, so we've got our homebrew folder where we've got our game dump for Dead Space Remake. And now I will also extract another game. Let's take Returnal. So I'll go ahead and extract this one, Returnal, over to the same location. Okay, so now that I have that game extracted, I'll go ahead and make sure that the folder structure is the same as our other game dump. So the title ID of the game -app. And that should be good there. So let's go ahead and see what happens now if we eject this USB drive and plug it in back to our PS5. And yep, there we go. Found a new game, installing Returnal. So it is actively monitoring the USB and the other locations for any new game dumps that get added. And there it is. Returnal now shows up. So yeah, I mean, I do love how this payload works here. It's nice. It's just running in the background whenever you add a new game dump onto your USB, plug it into your PS5, it will automatically detect it and install it. And now we should be able to launch Returnal by just launching it here directly from the home menu. And as soon as we reboot the jailbreak, we can also run the shortcuts directly from the home menu to load your games too. No longer have to go into either Itemzflow or the homebrew launcher to get your game dump installed. But finally, I want to see what the difference is if I add the notify payload. So if we take the PS5 autoloader text file, open it back up again, and this time we make sure that we tell it to run the notify payload first. So after Itemzflow, we run notify and then ShadowMount in that particular order, and we'll see, what the difference in the notifications are when we have it set up like this. Okay, so now when we run the YouTube jailbreak autoloader, it should load the notification payload first, which it does, and then also the ShadowMount. And there we go, we can see we get the different notifications showing up there, installed Returnal, and then also Dead Space installed. So it seems to be using the old notifications and the new notifications here. And there could also be some kind of confliction with Itemzflow, which also uses the new notification style, but we can see there installed Returnal is showing up, along with Astrobot. So yeah, if you use the notify.elf, you just get these different notifications in the top right-hand corner, instead of the regular debug notifications in the top left if you just use the ShadowMount.elf. That's really the only difference you're getting when you add that notify.elf file. But yeah, there you go, it's installed all three. Again, Astrobot from my internal storage, and then the two that are on my USB drive. Also, if you want to have this set up installed permanently, so that whenever you run the YouTube jailbreak autoloader, it will load this version, then you can install it to the hard drive instead of having it run off the USB. So for instance, all you got to do is simply use an FTP client like FileZilla, enter your PS5's IP address in the host box, port number 1337 when running Itemzflow, and then you can connect remotely to your console over the network. Obviously, the console needs to be connected to the network. And then we can go into the data folder here, and then from the data folder, you can see I already have a PS5 autoloader folder, but I could just take the one that I was loading from the USB and copy it into this folder, and then that way I don't need the USB drive plugged in to have this setup where it will load Itemzflow and then the ShadowMount as well. It will just load from the hard drive instead. You could also use PS5 Exploder to copy it over, but I have got reports recently of people saying it's not working when they're copying it over using PS5 Explorer, so there could be a file permission issue there on certain firmwares, so to avoid that, just use an FTP client if you can. So overall, I do think this is the most convenient way to get your PlayStation 5 game dumps installed, at least loaded off a USB drive. Now, if you want more options like the ability to copy the games to the internal storage or an M.2 drive, be able to delete the game files as well if you want to remove a game to free up space to add another one, well, in that case, Itemzflow is still the best option for this, which you need to have Itemzflow loaded to use Itemzflow, and then you can use that application. It can also be downloaded from the Homebrew store. So loading Itemzflow, you can then go to the PS5 app section, scan for applications, which will scan for all of the, installed game backups that you have. And once they're added, you can then select the game backup within Itemzflow, and you have the I/O options, which allow you to copy or move or delete an application. And then you can use those options to, copy an application to the internal storage, in which case you'd want to copy it to the /data//etahen/games directory. And then you can basically select that directory, and it will copy that game across over to the internal storage. So that's one option. And once you have it copied, you can delete the one from your USB. Then when it does the auto scan again with the ShadowMount, it will detect that game that is now on the internal storage and add it so that you can load it directly from the home menu. So you have those options there, and you can also use the delete feature within Itemzflow to delete a game completely. So anyway, that's going to do it for this video.